Hey guys, welcome on in to today's video where we're going to be talking about the 2018 Senate election in the state of Indiana, where you have the Democrat Joe Donnelly, who's running as the incumbent. He's going to be taking on the Republican challenger Mike Braun, but we're going to go over a little bit of historical information about this race and what happened 6 years ago. Then we're going to go into the polling and just look at how things are shaping up. And I think out of all of the incumbent Democrats running in the 2018 Senate elections here, Joe Donnelly is probably the one that has the seat that's toughest to defend at this point. Maybe Heidkamp over in North Dakota or McCaskill over in Missouri, but still, I think that this seat in Indiana with Joe Donnelly running as the incumbent is probably the Democrats' toughest hold possibility. So we go back to the 2012 election, and Joe Donnelly got a gift from the Republicans because on the Republican primary side, Richard Murdoch, a very far to the right individual, Tea Party backed, and his extreme stances, even though he was able to win the Republican primary by a significant margin over a more moderate Republican in Dick Lugar, in the general election, it was just too much for the voters in the state of Indiana as they went on to elect Joe Donnelly. As you can see, Donnelly getting 50% of the vote and Richard Murdoch 44.3%. And going down and looking at the information here, so the Republican primary results in this 2012 scenario, Richard Murdoch got over 400,000 votes compared to the incumbent who just got 261,000. So an absolute blowout there. And I actually feel like if Dick Lugar would have been able to win this Republican primary and been able to continue to run, he'd probably still be the senator from the state of Indiana. But nonetheless, that's not how the history played out. And it was a really bad choice for the Republicans this time around. They're trying to make up for that with this go around as they went with Mike Braun, who maybe is viewed as not quite as far to the right as Murdoch and more mainstream. At least that's what the Republicans are hoping, to try to get more of a percentage of that vote to try to take down Donnelly. So now that we looked at the history of what happened 6 years ago with Donnelly winning the seat against a very fortunate candidate there for him to be running against, we're going to go over to the 2018 primary results. So as you can see here, Mike Braun getting 208,000 votes. It was a pretty competitive race here between these three Republicans. And in this primary, 506,000 votes cast. We compare that back to this 2012, and it was 661,000 votes cast. So not quite the same enthusiasm on the Republican side of things, at least in this primary result compared to the last one. But Mike Braun going on to win this one, and now that he's the candidate, the Republicans are getting behind him. And going on over to the polling results, so we have the approval rating for Joe Donnelly, not the greatest. He's at 11% strongly approved, 30% somewhat approved, so 41% in total, compared to the somewhat disapprove and strongly disapprove at about 40%. So just a positive 1 percentage point there on the approval side compared to disapprove here of the incumbent Democrat. Now moving on down here, we're going to go to the, if the election for Senate were held today and the candidates were Mike Braun and Joe Donnelly, who would you vote for? And you have 45% for Mike Braun to just 44% of Joe Donnelly. And Donnelly, he's got that incumbency advantage, that name recognition advantage, and he's already down in the polls to Mike Braun, which is a really bad sign for him. And another big thing that for this particular race in particular is you have the vice president from the state of Indiana. He was the governor there, Mike Pence. I think he's going to be a big factor here in supporting Mike Braun and probably getting him over the line at the end of the day. They probably don't even need Donald Trump in this race to push things over the line for Braun. They can probably just send Pence over, and he would do enough positive work there in the state of Indiana where it would push Braun over Donnelly. So that's the numbers that I wanted to go over in this video, guys. So in terms of the positives for Donnelly, of course, he has that name recognition. He's the incumbent. His approval rating is still on the positive side, even though it is only positive 1 percentage point. And then the Republican, his positives are he's already polling above the incumbent Joe Donnelly, and he's going to have that Mike Pence factor, which should be a big boost to his candidate in a state like Indiana. So at this point, I feel like the Republicans are probably going to be able to flip this seat over and pick it up with Mike Braun ending up winning this one in Indiana, grabbing that Senate seat for the Republicans. So that's going to wrap up this video, guys. Thanks for stopping on in. Subscribe for more. We hope to see you guys back here for future videos. Bye.